Okay, so this is cost and benefits of an ERP deployment project. ERP project costing. We're going to look at the total cost of ownership and the hidden costs of owning and installing a ERP system. So the first thing, kind of light-hearted look at the total cost of ownership, or TCO, is here's the managing director saying, I need a cost estimate on your project. And the project engineer says, I have no idea, I haven't even gathered the user requirements. Don't worry, I won't hold you to the estimate. Yes, you will. You'll put it in the plan, forget we had this conversation, and fire me when I go over budget. Give me a number now, or I'll fire you right now. Okay, it'll cost $10 million. That's too high. If you already know the cost, why are you asking me? So you'll feel like you had input. Is input supposed to feel this bad? In fact, total cost of ownership is a serious business, and minimising it is what we are looking to do. And there are various things which affect it in terms of increasing costs. So this is a general view of the phases of ownership and the cost profile of an ERP project, and you can see that the cost ramps up in the acquisition phase, and then as the system gets implemented and gets down into project teams working, then the costs reduce to a certain extent. When you get to the first vertical line there, the life cycle starts where you've gone past go live and it's actually running. The reason why the costs go up there is because of staffing costs and training and that kind of thing, and any fault reductions that you might have to do, and re-customizations. And then finally you go into the replacement phase, and the costs rise again. So what influences the total cost of ownership? Well, the first thing is transaction volume, both now and in the future. You've got to guard against the system not being able to do the number of transactions that are required per hour. And that's one of the problems that Fox Mayer had. We remember we looked at that as one of the cases of a failed ERP project, and Fox Mayer just couldn't do the transaction volume to meet the needs of the various contracts it had picked up. And that was down to poor requirements gathering at the beginning. It's also TCO is also affected by the number of users. So more users means more data to process and more input-output facilities that are needed. It's also affected by the functionality of the software, so the number of modules that you're buying, any bolt-ons that are going to be included, and you can see in the image on the right here the various types of modules that you can add to an ERP system. The ERP total cost of ownership has certain cost components, and these are the software and database licenses that you need, servers and network infrastructure you've got to provide, implementation services, so getting consultants in, internal HR costs, and ongoing maintenance. Costs relate to licensing, infrastructure, consultancy, human resource costs, and maintenance. So here are some costs that differentiate one ERP system from another. When you're doing a trial to say which one you're going to have, the things which differentiate one ERP system to another, which are important to think about, are the cost of the software licenses, the cost of implementation services, and the maintenance costs. Those are things which are different between SAP or Oracle or the other ERP vendors. But things that happen to all systems and therefore don't differentiate between one and the other are the database license costs, the internal HR costs, and also hardware costs, because you want to still need the hardware no matter what bit of software you've got. although you can do away with some of these costs if you choose a software as a service solution. The idea being that you don't provide as much software in-house, it's all provided for you, and therefore that reduces the need to have as big an IT staff. But these costs savings don't always work out as big as you might think. HR costs can actually end up being higher, and implementation does take a big chunk of the costs. So during the implementation process, at the beginning there's a high risk of failure due to participant resistance and from the impact of high cost on company results. Strategies employed to show benefits include getting high involvement of the staff, driven by the top at day one, and then seeking to achieve some early wins. And it's this early win, if you can find something which you know was broken and you fix it with a good set of new processes, then this is going to go down well. It's going to be noticed in the company, and that will help you get buy-in for other modules that you might want to install. So on the left hand side here you see some one-time acquisition costs, and then so buying software and hardware. There are some reoccurring costs which you need to think about in the total cost of things. Process costs, in theory, they should fall off, but it's showing constant here. These are the kind of costs in running a particular process. Ideally, you would actually lower process costs by better processes at some point. Technology costs are big at the beginning and then tail off because you have to have the technology there, the infrastructure such as networks and servers and all that kind of stuff. Conversely, the people costs start quite small with pilot projects going on with the pilot project team, and then as you go nearer to go live and past it, you have to train people, and so there's a lot of cost from that. So it kind of inverse relationship with technology costs. Licensing costs for the software will depend on the number of end users that are going to use the system, and also the number of modules implemented, and there's kind of like complex working out of what the fee per month would be. As an example, you have core ERP in one particular case, then bolt-ons of supply chain management and customer relationship management, and they've stated they have 1,000 employees. Well, usually you have a much lower number of users, say a few in each department, who will actually use particular parts of the software. Application licensing, this is a different type of license, and you can choose from named user, a number of named users that you can access the system, or you can have a site license, which means everybody can use it, obviously more costly, and concurrent user, where so many users up to a certain limit, say 200 users, can use the system. If you're a heavy user of this software, then you would be perhaps you would be a heavy user, not a casual user license. There are volume discounts available for multiple bolt-on purchases, so it's well worth thinking about that when you're doing the order. And end of quarter discounts from salesmen who haven't met their targets and are looking for some value that they can add to their sales record. You may be able to get a project delivered a bit cheap from the software point of view and licensing. You'll need to have in place databases to run the system on, operating systems, and identity management as well. So the database cost is based on the number of simultaneous users logged in and the number of database servers required. Operating systems costs are also user related, because obviously you have one operating system per computer in a lot of cases. Identity management, to allocate rights and privileges by role, and also to give access to software modules. Another thing you can do. The hardware, other hardware, database and application servers, hardware boxes, storage systems, and they could be storage area networks or network attached storage, or both. As you can see some of those in that picture. I can see a Netgear 4-way RAID system there. You'll need network infrastructure, wiring and power supply, user workstations, and redundant systems. So things like backups. And they would involve things like diesel generators, uninterruptible power supplies for battery backup to support these systems, and there would also be fire protection, access protection, lots of things like that. You can avoid some of those costs by going software as a service, and then that will be run at somebody else's premises, and you don't need to worry so much about the hardware or the software. Implementation services. Consultants may come in and offer an implementation service by sending in some of their specialists. In the past, this could mean some junior staff who wouldn't cost much, but after the order has been won to provide those consultancy services by the senior management, so it's kind of, I've always thought this was a bit cynical the way they did this. So there are some consultancy services that you can take advantage of. They have implementation specialists, subject matter experts, project managers, and testing and training specialists who can be employed. Costs will rise exponentially if you let the consultants do what they want to do, as Fox Mayer again found. They didn't have a very good control of their consultants, who were basically using the company as a way to learn. And if you're not ready to use consultants when they arrive, then you're just pouring money down the drain, really. There's something called an implementation ratio. So for every pound of software license cost that you pay, in other words the cost of the ERP system, £2 is allocated to cover implementation costs. So that's training, systems integration, commissioning, all that kind of thing. Consultants would be asked for a cost ceiling to limit exposure. So you get them to give you a maximum figure that this is going to cost, so you don't have to go above that and have runaway costs. The implementation ratio quotes will be higher for complex software, which goes without saying, really. Implementation costs relate to complexity of business processes, and the number of users only impacts the user training costs in this case. So internal HR costs. There's the costs of employees diverted from their jobs. So you put the best people that you've got on it, and sometimes they're doing parallel running where they're doing their normal day job with the old system, and then they're doing the new, using the new system to win the action on the project. Cost of employees diverted from their jobs is something a bit difficult to estimate. There is a cost of lost productivity of functional teams who lose these people to go to a project team who are responsible for implementing the ERP. You can overcome this by seconding employees full-time to the project, and that allows you to backfill those positions temporarily, so that people can go through the kind of cycle of design, configuration, testing and training. Estimating the cost of employees on a project. First thing you do is you calculate the number of full-time equivalent staff. These are the parts of employees seconded to the project, both during implementation and after go live has happened. So an FTE is the percentage of member project time times the length of the service times the head count. And the cost of these employees should be mindful of the skill level that they have and also the labour rate. So hence the estimate to obtain total internal labour costs for the project. Ongoing maintenance. The cost of maintenance after go live can be 20 to 30% of the cost of the ERP software. This cost is made up of updates, patches, routine consulting, technical support and minor upgrades. Some of the hidden costs of ERP. The first thing is scope creep. That's where you underestimate the total cost of ownership for ERP systems. Scope creep is going to lead to costs that were unplanned originally. You let the definition of the project get too wide and you end up paying for it in terms of delays, extra cost, extra modules. Not a good option. Unchallenged scope creep may lead to a failed ERP installation, and it can result from poor business requirements gathering, the client not being ready when you need them to be if you're the consultant, unavailability of the hardware infrastructure, both hardware and the remote connectivity to run the system. All of this can push up TCO, so you need to be careful. Another way of underestimating the TCO would be where firms are severely underestimating the training they need, and the cost of training, however, can be cut by firms seeking help from ERP training specialists. They can ease the transition from old to new systems. However, skimping on training can lead to problems and unplanned future costs, so you have to be very careful there. Some hidden ERP costs. The cost of customization. This may not get properly thought about. Firms may not examine the full functionality of what they're getting. They may see the need for customization after the project start has happened. This may require the standard code to be changed. Code changes hold up the projects and involve costly consultants. Customization may not be properly thought out. Firms may not examine the full functionality of what they're getting. They may see the need for customization after the project start, and this may require the standard code to be changed by some means. Code changes, however, hold up the projects and involve costly consultants, so you try to minimise that if you can. Future upgrades can give problems if the code is customised. That's why Panorama Consulting have said there are so many vanilla installations where that is done, where the upgrades to the system aren't onerous. ERP vendors say they provide best practice out of a box, and there's this kind of dissonance between vanilla installations and significantly customised ones as to which is best. Other hidden ERP costs, data management. So it's the cost of data conversion and cleansing, scrubbing it to make sure there are no duplicates or missing entries or invalid entries or typographical errors. Done manually, but at the moment, but can be done automatically after. Cleansing software checks data with a known list of entities. An ERP project centralises the data, so it will be flawed if the data isn't scrubbed and allocated in the right way. So that's another thing that needs to be considered. Other causes of hidden costs. If you have a bespoke interface design, so you might use composite applications, or you might do some significant customization in Crystal Reports, what used to be called Crystal Reports, now part of SAP, and other ERP systems may also need to be linked in. Another thing that will ramp up the costs are writing custom reports. So some of these you can get from management, but not all. So some of that is an ongoing process. So the benefits of ERP, let's quantify them. ERP costs are easier to quantify than the benefits. So many benefits are intangible, such as better data integration. Companies often choose to limit the project scope to address lowering inventory costs, faster time to close the books. So you really want to be as quick to close the books as you can, because there's value in the bank. Other elements form future phases of the project to guard against scope creep. Business cases should be defendable or defensible, in case people want to change things. The measurement of benefits should not be too time consuming, but it's important to quantify those benefits and set goals and motivate staff. Some purchasing cost savings. When you're comparing the as-is situation to the to-be situation, you can measure how the business is doing now with some KPIs. Measure the new business performance, compare the difference before and after, and the measured KPIs. You measure how the business is doing now, deploy the chosen ERP solutions, measure the new business performance, compare the difference before and after, and then the measured KPIs that you might want to use are kind of decided upon, such as inventory turnover, order to cash cycle time, order fulfillment versus time before and after go live, can be tabulated. So there are some changes there that can be made to keep down purchasing costs. There are also so this is looking at purchasing and the purchasing side of things to see how well they can save money. So in the diagram you can see a current hours column, and on the right hand side a new ERP hours column, and you can see that some of those figures are something like 2 hours less. So that all totals up nicely into quite a big saving there, $100,000. Just down to the better way that you can use employees and have the system do some of their role. So the benefits, we're looking for efficiency, effectiveness, and providing a better service. So in stage one, if we say that once the company has gone live, you're looking to add functionality, so you can make incremental steps in improving things with perhaps new modules. Once it's working, then you can extend the capabilities, and I mentioned earlier that you can have enhancement packs to give more functionality from the system that's already been installed. And then finally you can create new capabilities by changing the game some while later, and so that's where we're going as far as benefits are concerned. The key is to break through the dotted line there. So this graph is from Panorama Consulting, and it shows the phases of installation. So you've got legacy system, you turn that into new system. There's the go live phase, then the next phase is competitive edge, and then finally ERP phase 3 results in ROI, return on investment, in the region of 100 to 150 students. So in this procedure you go live, and then you have try to gain a competitive edge by supplying different bolt-ons, etc., doing business process improvements, and then finally in the ERP phase 3 you can look at the results and see how well you're doing. ERP benefits, there's some benefits from having the financials all integrated together instead of using multiple spreadsheets and all the reconciliation problems that involves. Once you've got integrated financials, then nobody's going to question, once it's been proved that the system is not right. So what we're saying here is integrated financials mean people trust the system. They don't try and freak it to get their own delivery delivered ahead of other people's, and the whole trading efficiency of group improves. Integrated orders. So having the system handle everything from sales automation and that side of things process. It handles all the order to cash processes. Before ERP, an order would get stuck in an inbox or lost. But with this ERP, you can basically do everything you need to within one system, and that links people together. As you can see in the arrows there, and the starting salesman. We can do processes faster, so standardize and speed up manufacturing processes. The business units can build the same products differently by region. But that's not always the best thing. IBM tried very hard to cut that out and save themselves quite a bit of money. But it's different for different industries. ERP systems come with standard methods for automation. Business processes become standardized between plants. Inventory records become more accurate, and manufacturing schedules are kept, and rework becomes less. So these are some of the things that you can achieve with an ERP system. Such a system should lead to reduced inventory, what's called just-in-time manufacture, where the customer bears the cost of storing the supplies that the company needs. Obviously, they would only wear that if they were getting good orders from you. It leads to reduced work in progress, less scrap, and less rework. So ERP's got a lot going for it if it's properly implemented. ERP benefits HR information. Global companies may not have unified human resource management. So ERP generates a single method for recruitment training, employee time tracking, compensation management. Employee information is consolidated into one system, and self-service records they're kept and made available to managers and employees at some point. What can happen is that self-service for managers and employees is a quick win for ERP projects, so you can get the system set up so that it will actually feed back on information, so there's no kind of idea of the company hoarding it. So that's a review of HR information. It's the end of the briefing. There are more, but this is the end of costs and benefits of an ERP project. You are welcome to come and talk to me about it if you choose to. So thank you very much for listening, and we'll log off.